23-0, very much still in play. The Kansas City Chiefs win 28-25 over the Minnesota Vikings. It wasn't as close as it looked. The Kansas City Chiefs, it didn't matter who lined up in red, dominated this game. A lot of fun, closing out the preseason. And now we get to turn the page a little bit too towards real football. Very excited. A lot to talk about today. And here to do it are two of my dear pals. First, find them on Twitter at Chief in Carolina. Back in the first slot of introductions. Maddie Lane, what's good? Man.
I could not be more excited to be here. Sorry, guys. I'm having some technical difficulties for a second. I have fixed them, though, so we are now good. This is what happens when you have a live show, but we are here. We are ready to go. And I'm just glad that I got introduced first. But I don't think we need to talk about us or introduce us. Everybody knows who we are right now. I think we have to talk about this game. And just right off the bat, first thing that comes to mind after watching that game, Craig, what's the first thing that stuck out to you?
Oh, man. The first thing that stuck out to me is how the Chiefs honored our good pal, Terez Paylor. That was awesome by them. If you donated to the Terez A. Paylor Scholarship Fund, then we thank you so much. It means so much, and his legacy will live on. We are all juice forever. From the game itself, the thing that I love the most, Patrick Mahomes looked phenomenal. I mean, like this, it looked like mid-season Patrick Mahomes again. And after some, slow starts to some preseason games, it was good to see it. Kent, you have to be just giddy with the arm angles, the things that he was doing, the misdirection that he was able to perform, in a game that we didn't think that he was going to even play that much.
I can't stop smiling. No, look, here's the thing. We got to see a little bit of those special Patrick Mahomes plays that we're all kind of accustomed to. And it was really like probably the first, moment that you got this year. And there's going to be a ton of them this year in the regular season. And, it's been a limited sample size, very basic play concepts. But you saw Mahomes wrapping around a defensive line's arms, throwing a sidearm angle to Travis Kelce, who ran an excellent route on that play. You're starting to see those, some of those special plays. But beyond that, he was uber efficient. 8 of 9, 2 touchdowns, I believe 117 yards. He was sharp. He was poised. Everything was just complete control. Maddie, I know you were pretty hyped too.
Yeah, and I think it kind of went back to just what we talked about this past week was we were talking about how if the Chiefs start to run more slants, it's great because what Patrick Mahomes can do with different arm angles and do with different things. It's not that they really went out there and ran a bunch of slants, but I think you got to see just the manipulation that Patrick Mahomes can have over defenders, the different arm angles. He can deliver a very accurate pass and then come through there, deliver it right on the money to a variety of guys, different levels all over the field. This is some of the best football I've seen from Patrick Mahomes. And I know it's a preseason game, but he was in so much control throughout the beginning of this game. Like he absolutely positively looked like the best player that's ever taken the field in football with just the control that he showed. And Twitter gets all upset and says, oh, hey, it's against backups. I don't care. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Most quarterbacks that have ever played the game couldn't just look the way that he did out there. So that was really good to see him come out and look really sharp after maybe not the best performance last week against the Cardinals.
Yeah, and he did. He looked ultra sharp the entire time that he was out there on the field. He was finding guys. That dime that he dropped to Tyreek Hill was excellent. Listen, the Minnesota Vikings know that if you're going to leave Bashaud Breeland on an island against Tyreek Hill, like everybody in the world knows how that's going to go. So of course Patrick Mahomes knew that was coming, was able to hit it, but it was good to see. It was good to see that touch was there. It was good to see the connection was there with multiple guys, not just Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. It's good to see a lot of that. It was also good to see the offensive line continue to look good. I was pleased with what I saw up front from those guys. I think this is about as good of a preseason as you can have from an offensive line perspective, especially with 5 new starters, 5 guys that are brand new to Kansas City. This is about the best that you could hope for going into the season. They are going to get tested. Lucas Niang and Orlando Brown haven't seen a real defensive end yet, and they're going to get 2 of them, in a week and a half here. So there's still a lot of questions that are going to get asked about this offensive line. But so far, through 3 preseason games with a vanilla defense, they look pretty good.
Unfortunately, it's 2 full weeks plus, Craig, until we
I
get
know.
to see this Chiefs offensive line.
I'm planning to black out for like half a week, so like I'm just gonna skip it.
That checks out. Yeah, you saw. Yeah, I think everything you saw from the first team offense, it was a very, very efficient, performance, running the football well. Some good things in the run game with Mccannon, doing some good things behind a great offensive line performance, I thought. And Mahomes looked really comfortable. He looked more comfortable this week than he did last week. He, I think, operated well from the pocket largely this week. Got a little creative and started creating out of structure a little bit. You saw all the hallmarks of a Kansas City Chiefs offense, everything you wanted to see. And, from much, as much talk as we've had about, the secondary kind of pass catchers and, saw Demarcus Robinson step up this week. This offense has always been about the top shelf dudes, the Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be a very big part of that too here. And you got to see Demarcus Robinson this week, surprise, and step up a little bit to be that secondary pass catcher. But honestly, Maddie, this might be what happens the entirety of the year. It's just somebody's day between him and Pringle and McCole Hardman. I think that's what you're going to see a little bit of when it's not one of the superstars.
I think that has to be the expectation going in, is that you're not going to have a steady second wide receiver, or your, second, third option, I guess, behind Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill might not be the same person week in, week out. And that's okay. It's going to be entirely matchup dependent. It's going to be who's playing the best that particular week. I am happy for Demarcus Robinson, though, that he came out and looked good. And not only did he have the 2 catches where he was relatively open, he absolutely torched Bashaud Breeland on a double move that just Patrick Mahomes ended up throwing his one incompletion as he kind of threw it away to the other side of the field. But it was good to see Robinson look good after he got a lot of hard time on Twitter because Dave Tobe said he doesn't return punts very well. But it was nice to see him come out and have a strong performance. Like, okay, he's clearly worth playing on an NFL roster. It's pretty easy to watch him and see that talent and that he's good. So I'm glad that he had a big game. Creed Humphrey, I think somebody had mentioned him earlier in one of the comments. He's been steadily getting better and better to the point where he just looks like a consistent center just across the board. And that's how he played at Oklahoma. Just consistency, snap in, snap out. Trey Smith might have a lot more peaks, but there's definitely going to be some more valleys. I think even in this game, in one of the early runs, he actually got driven back off the line of scrimmage a good 3 or 4 yards, actually kind of blew up the run a little bit. I think he's going to be a little more up and down. But Creed Humphrey, I think this guy's going to be steady from the get-go, and that's really nice to see out of the center and this offensive line.
Yeah, it really is. Most of the young guys really performed well. I don't have a whole lot of negatives to really take away from the offense throughout the preseason. Other than this, Cornell Powell, guys, let's have a little conversation about Cornell Powell. Not getting into the game until very late in every single one of these games. A guy that all 3 of us were pretty high on coming out of the draft. We thought that the Chiefs may have gotten a little bit of a steal, in day 3. A guy that maybe not was going to be a true X receiver right off the bat here, but one that we had kind of hoped was going to come in, be able to take some snaps because, again, he does all the little things well. He's a good blocker, good route runner. Can't get on the field. Can't get on the field above some of these other guys who are playing very well. Don't get me wrong. Darius Fountain, Marcus Kemp have looked really good in some limited snaps here in the preseason. But Cornell Powell, frankly, he just doesn't look the part right now. And right now you've got a day 3 pick that probably might be on the outside looking in. What do you guys think about that?
I think he's on the outside looking in. If I'm, an immediate emotional reaction right now, right after the game, I think you are looking at Cornell Powell on the outside looking into this roster. And, offensively, lack of explosion, not a particularly explosive player, the athletic profile. I mean, that's never been exactly like the big thing about him, but it doesn't, he doesn't look like an NFL athlete right now, personally. And then special teams is pretty disappointing because this is a guy that cut his teeth at Clemson and fought his way through opportunities at Clemson and, on special teams. That was where he kind of, got opportunities for the majority of his career and finally stuck around long enough and had a little mini breakout at Clemson his senior year. And what we've seen to this point of him, not much to write home about. I'm pretty underwhelmed. And from a special teams standpoint, hasn't stood out. And there's been guys like Marcus Kemp that have been more productive offensively. different athletes, different kinds of athletes, obviously, but special teams. I mean, Marcus Kemp made a phenomenal play in special teams again today. He actually made he made two great special teams plays. He had the nice tackle down there on punt, but then he pancaked somebody on the Mike Hughes return that got called back. Just because the play got called back there doesn't mean what Marcus Kemp did wasn't impressive. Marcus Kemp had a great day. I think if you're asking me right now, I'm putting Marcus Kemp in Sharpie. I don't know where you stand on the Cornell Powell. Yeah, Marcus Kemp situation, Maddie, but I'll give you a chance to kind of give your take.
Well, I mean, I pretty much have the same things to say that you guys already did, I believe. I think the most disappointing part is there hasn't been anything that's happened for special teams. I don't remember seeing Cornell Powell really make an impact on special teams in any one of these games. And that's kind of like your free ticket, especially as a draft pick. Like, people can like your potential on the offensive or defensive side of the ball if you can come in and play special teams early on. If you can be a guy that can fill in reps there, play multiple roles and be good at them, you're going to make the team. I just don't see Cornell Powell making a lot of plays on special teams. I don't even see him getting a lot of opportunities with the first and second teams of the special team units getting a lot of play. So that's warning flag number one. Next is just when he's getting in the game. Like, this game, Darius Fountain got a lot of opportunities to make plays. He didn't make a ton of them. I'm not saying that as a negative, just he was put in a lot of difficult opportunities and couldn't come in with a play. But if that was what Cornell Powell had going on throughout the entire preseason, fine. You see what the Chiefs are going for. You see the angle they're trying to play with him, and it just didn't connect. Just the fact that he's not getting in the game until they're essentially over, and then they're just kind of throwing him a couple little button hooks and throwing him the ball in the flat. It's just, there's just not a lot there right now. 32 teams passed over him multiple times in the draft. He's a fifth-year senior coming out of Clemson. There's a good chance that he makes it to your practice squad without a team trying to put them on their active roster. I don't think you have to mystery IR him. I think there's a lot of teams that passed on him once already. There's no guarantee he won't be easily available to get on your practice squad.
And I don't know what's changed for him, since then. I don't think he's helped himself. There's not been a ton on tape to really get excited about, I don't think. And so, yeah, as Angry Drunken said, yeah, I mean, practice squad makes a lot of sense. I do want to jump in here really quick and talk about Demarcus Robinson because I saw a lot of comments on Twitter. I'm seeing a lot of comments here in the YouTube mentions just talking about Demarcus Robinson. And one of the things that we preach here on the lab or at KCSN is, snap count tells the story. The snap count tells you the story. The opportunity tells you the story. Demarcus Robinson was playing a lot with the ones in the final dress rehearsal for this football team. It seems like he's probably very much in the mix offensively for this football team. Maybe not punt return. Actually, very obvious.
No, never again. Just give that job to Mike Hughes and let's forget about whoever it is that you're rotating in.
But he returned a punt with no mouthpiece. Like, what are we doing still discussing this? He didn't fair catch a preseason punt and he returned it with no mouthpiece. Like, this is Mike Hughes' job.
Yeah, no, Demarcus Robinson will not be returning anything, and that's okay. But you saw him not only getting a ton of run, but getting targets from Patrick Mahomes in the biggest dress rehearsal before the season starts. The last time you're going to see this football team before the season starts. I don't think there's any chance that Demarcus Robinson is getting cut from this football team. I think he's making the 53, or they feel comfortable enough, trying to showcase him in a trade. I don't think that's what it is. I think he's on his football team. I think he's going to see a very decent amount of snaps, and it may not be much different than he's seen in recent memory. So, I know there's a lot of talk about Demarcus Robinson, and maybe you think he's a Jag, or just a guy, not a Jaguar, just a guy. Sorry, Chris Conley. But, there's I lost my train of thought for a second, but honestly, he's not a Jag to Patrick Mahomes, I don't think. And he's not a Jag to this organization. They've definitely got him at value the last few years, but they have a very clear value for him as well because he's been able to stick around. They continue to bring him back, Patrick Mahomes and him. I mean, remember the first wow moments of Patrick Mahomes' career in Kansas City as a rookie in the preseason were Demarcus Robinson. There's a lot of chemistry there. And I think Patrick Mahomes has valued chemistry, which is why guys like him have stuck around, Maddie.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Demarcus Robinson's not only not going to be cut, he's going to make this roster and he's going to play significant snaps. from the very beginning. Unless he gets injured, he's playing significant snaps all the way through the season. I think Byron Pringle's name, I think, was brought up by one of the mentions or comments here too. I think Byron Pringle also had a good preseason. I think he's very steady. Anytime he gets an opportunity, he makes a play. I think you're going to see a pretty steady rotation of your wide receiver 2 and 3 between Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, and Byron Pringle. It's going to kind of be really situational on what they're trying to do, the matchups they have going on. I think all those guys are about on even footing. I do think the Chiefs are telling you they have Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson slightly above Byron Pringle right now, just based on when and who they're playing with. But as the season goes on, I think all three of those guys are going to stick around. They're going to be part of this offensive game plan week in and week out. It's like I just wouldn't expect any three of those guys to go anywhere.
Before we move off of the offense, because
we got a lot more offense. We got a lot more offense, Greg.
No. Frankly, we need to move on to the defense. I want to talk about Jerick McKinnon. I think that he needs to be talked about right here and now. He looked great again. This is a guy that, as he's gotten more snaps in this preseason with this first team offensive line, he looks decisive. He looks explosive. He's hitting the holes on these gap scheme runs just ridiculously well. Obviously, Darwin Thompson got some run, and he looked really good in some of the outside zone runs that they did. I thought Jerick McKinnon looked just fantastic. He looked like a guy that is ready to add that extra element, that's ready to take the lid off of this, the defense, that it's going to give up a lot of stuff underneath. He's going to be in the third level more often than not in some, just light boxes. And that's what this team is going to see with this offensive line blocking the way that they are. He's going to have a head of steam into the secondary. I got really excited about Jerick McKinnon at the start of this preseason, and it hasn't stopped since.
Craig, is Jett McCannon running back too?
Oh.
See, I think it's going to be kind of a situational type thing. I don't think that it's as straight up as Jerick McKinnon gets the second role. I think he's going to get some third down looks. I think Daryl Williams is going to get some third down looks. I think it's going to be a hot hand guy behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And if Jett McKinnon looks to be the guy early in the season, well, then Daryl is going to wait. But as we know about Daryl Williams, he's always ready. And he, when he gets those opportunities, he does take them as well. I don't think that it's going to be just a straight up 2 versus 3 situation. I think you're going to see some matchups that are just better for Jett than they are for Daryl, and vice versa.
Coward Kent, who has the second most running back snaps at the end of the year, Jett McCannon or Daryl Williams?
Daryl Williams still.
Okay.
I tend to subscribe to a level of this team valuing the past a lot with some of these decisions, and it seems like this Daryl Williams is a very trusted member of this rotation. He has been for several years now. They've really liked him. They really kind of they've leaned on him in some critical situations, and so I don't think they're just gonna dismiss Daryl Williams' role in this football team unless he's not healthy. I think it's going to take a little bit more than that to get him kind of removed from that RB2 spot personally.
So one more offensive thing as we get going here. Jody Fortson came alive kind of towards the end of the fourth quarter like he has in all preseason games. So again, pay attention to where guys play. I'm not saying don't be hyped about Jody Fortson. Just also understand it was in the last real drive of the Chiefs offensive series against the Minnesota Vikings. However, he still looks good as a blocker. This is the second week in a row where Jody Fortson's looked good as a blocker, especially on that screen route. So Jody Fortson, I think we all agree, safely making this team. The question is, does that mean that Daurice Fountain's out for Jody Fortson? Do we think Jody Fortson makes the team over Daurice Fountain? Because I don't know if you have a spot for both of them here.
I don't think Daurice Fountain makes this football team, and I know I know he's a lot of fun, but where has he made his impact on special teams? And how many reps with Patrick Mahomes has he gotten? There's two things that don't add up there, right? You're looking at the situation and you're going, oh, Daurice Fountain's making all these plays. How many of those passes were from Patrick Mahomes? So the offensive value of Daurice Fountain is fun to watch, and I like him a lot. And I mean, me and Maddie liked him coming out of college a little bit. And he hasn't got a lot of opportunities offensively with Patrick Mahomes, and he hasn't done anything on special teams. That's two things that should tell you something. all the receivers that we've talked about making this football team outside of Cornell Powell, which now we're not really optimistic about him making the football team, have been catching passes from Patrick Mahomes in game settings, in these preseason game settings, been getting targets. That's something that's very telling to me. This, again, I think the snap count's telling you the story. There's no special teams value there, and he's catching passes from Shane Buechele, the second best quarterback in the AFC West.
Ooh, whoa. Okay,
Wait,
hang on here. Justin Herbert's out here. Let's not dunk on him. No,
I was saying on. Chad Henney's
Oh, sorry.
out here.
Oh, Chad Henne. Oh, I'm sorry. Chad Henne's out here. No, I agree. Jody Fortson had great blocks on that screen touchdown that happened earlier today. Jody Fortson was out there early with special teams. Again, I was paying special close attention to the special teams rotation there. He's out there. So Dave Tope trusts him. You're seeing play after play. You're seeing impactful plays in the preseason that aren't just him catching the ball. It's not just him getting loose or him high pointing a ball over somebody in the preseason. It's a willingness to block. It's getting out in space. It's, finding work. That is always going to earn you, praise for Andy Reid. And the fact that he has done this consistently time and time again, I almost think, and I realize the 53-man roster is coming out here, so I'm going to say this, and it could not be the case. I almost think that Jody Fortson's a lock for this roster. I really do. And I think that they're going to keep 4 tight ends on this roster. I really, really do. And I think Andy lining up in 14 personnel
God,
should tell you that was his hat tip. He was letting us all know that he's going to keep 4 tight ends this year.
Ooh, I like that. I like that little look there. I think I think 4 tight ends make the roster. I think somebody is going to be Ricky Seals-Jonesed several times this year and just not see the active roster. I think that could be. I think at this point it might be Noah Gray, which is
going back to your point that you were talking about with wide receivers earlier. Noah Gray is getting a lot more run earlier in the game than Jody Fortson is. Noah Gray is the guy they put out there earlier on and let Jody Fortson come on later. And he's kind of, as a receiver, played clean up a little bit more. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, because I agree with you guys that they're going to keep 4 tight ends. I think Jody Fortson takes the place of the 6th wide receiver, which is either Dorius Fountain or Cornell Powell. So I think you're getting 4 tight ends, with Fortson being one of them. But enough offense. We have to move to the most important side of the football. It is time for Craig to give me his standout on special teams.
Oh, my standout on special teams was Chris Laments. Chris Laments looked phenomenal on special teams tonight. He about blocked a punt. He made a couple plays out there. You didn't think I was going to have one. Laments.
I saw your tweet or a DM. I don't remember which. I knew you were ready with the Chris Laments. I knew it was there.
Except for you got it wrong because it's Marcus Kent.
No, Chris Laments was running with the ones on special teams, guys. I mean, like a guy that we haven't talked about much that's in the DB rotation that probably won't make this team, but is also getting first team opportunities with special teams. I mean, that's not nothing. And he made impactful plays. Yes, Marcus Kemp did as well. Marcus Kemp was excellent. So was Mike Hughes. But Chris Laments, I don't know what to make of that exactly.
I think we need to make Tucker break the tie on that one, on who was.
Let's do that. Okay. Yeah.
Well, who wasn't excellent was the person who fair caught a punt in a preseason game with 10 yards of separation to the nearest defender.
Well, that's another story for another day. All right, Craig, do you want to talk defense now, or should we just close the show up? Okay.
Please.
Cool. All right, so, the Chiefs' dominance on defense continues. Obviously we're hemorrhaging a little bit on the first drive, but overall, I think you got to be pretty excited about what you saw on the defensive side of the football for this football team, up and down. Even the offense gave up a touchdown at one point here too. Maddie, what was your overall takeaway on the defensive side of the football?
Well, even without Chris Jones and Frank Clark, I thought the defensive line still played well. And I think they didn't play as good. There was clearly a loss of talent there. But what it did allow is it allowed Willy Gray and Anthony Hitchens, that the defensive line played good enough for this linebacker group to go crazy. It allowed Willy Gray to play fast. It allowed Anthony Hitchens to continue to play fast. But I think Willy Gray is who really caught my eye. He was flying all around the field. He was playing at full speed, something I don't think he was allowed to do versus the Cardinals just because of how that offense was operating against the Vikings. He was moving 100 miles an hour, and more often than not, he was right. Do you have any takes on Willy Gray, Kent?
Oh, sorry. I was super distracted by Craig's new angle, which is beautiful. This is looking great. Yeah, no, Willy Gray. I mean, Willy Gray was flying around. I think this was the best we've seen him in a Chiefs jersey, perhaps. It's exciting to see, the kind of level of steps he's taken. I think he had a really solid game. This was kind of like, really important dress for rehearsal for him because he's kind of had some issues here and there, not getting to be available for the entirety of training camp. So this was a big step for him. I think reps are really valuable for this guy because he didn't get, as many as we'd all hoped last year. And even during training camp, DeAndre Baker got a lot of snaps. We might wind up talking about him too at some point, but I think Willy Gay needs valuable reps too, and so I think the Chiefs did a good job of giving him some opportunities while getting him ready for a much bigger role in this Chiefs this year, and I cannot wait to see what he looks like.
Yeah, no, he looks great. You just see the decisiveness on the field immediately when you watch him. There's not the same hesitation that you saw last year. We've talked about that plenty, but I do think you got to see him make a few more plays this week, and that was good because I saw the ways that he was moving, the things that he did last week, and they just didn't get to go at him very often. The offense went away from him. They were scared of him practically, So I I do think that it was good to see him getting to take on blocks, getting to fill gaps to his side of the field, and getting to make plays. And that the way that he was able to click and close in the middle of the field in the red zone to break up that pass was fantastic. I realized the pass was a little bit off, receivers dropping the ball a little bit, but that's going to hurt. Like, Willy Gay is out here and he is looking to make an impact, and he loves everybody on defense and is going to be the biggest cheerleader. And I love it. I absolutely love that he's got that level of energy, that level. I mean, like I put it on Twitter, it's infectious. It really is infectious. So really excited for year 2 of Willy Gay. That's off to a great start so far.
Well, in that play that he broke up on with the big hit over the pass over the middle in the red zone, it was a couple plays after. I do think he got beat by play action to the tight end Irv Smith out into the flat. I do believe that, he probably should have had his eyes out there a little bit earlier. So when that play action first went down that play, it looked like Willy Gay was starting to open his hips up and just sprint back into coverage. And I was about to, comment on, oh no, these are kind of the learning reps that Willy Gay needs. But the fluidity to flip his hips back around, locate the receiver coming into what would be his zone, and then crash down on it, and then make an NFL rule book, Nancy textbook tackle instead of hitting the guy too high. Like, it was a great play. It went from an oh no to a oh wow, like real quick, just because I thought he was about to get beat by play action for the second time in a handful of plays. And that's kind of what kept him off the field last year. So you like to see the development coming here.
I know this is, do you have something more on Willy Gay?
No, I was going to transition to the best player on the field, but you go right ahead.
Was it L'Jarius Sneed? Because that's where I was going.
It was. Yes.
Look, I know we talk about him a lot, but that dude is getting better and better as time goes on, and it is an absolute joy to watch him play football, and he does everything so well. I mean, he is literally there's not a lot of things he doesn't do well. He operates well in the slot. He's good outside. He's great against the run. This man is a complete player, and people forget he didn't even have a complete season last year. He missed a large stretch of football, but all that dude did was find the football, make plays. I mean, he is less than 16 games into his NFL career, and he looks like one of the best corners in the National Football League. Maddie made a joke earlier, and I don't even know.
It wasn't a joke.
Go ahead.
Listen,
read your tweet out.
Most people, I tweet out. Most people in here are probably Chiefs fans, so you guys already know. But this goes out to the rest of the world. Anybody out there that's just a fan of football. If you talk about cornerbacks and you're talking about who the best cornerback in the league is, and you say Jalen Ramsey, you're right. But if you start filling out the rest of your list and you don't have L'Jarius Sneed as one of the next 4 names out of your mouth, you're wrong. You need to simply go fix that right here, right now, because at the end of this year, L'Jarius Sneed's going to be in everyone's top 5 cornerback lists if they're paying attention. And if you don't, you're going to be laughed at on Twitter, and nobody wants to be laughed at on Twitter. It's embarrassing. We all know. We've all been there. We don't do it. Keep L'Jarius Sneed in your top 5 cornerback rankings because he's different. And I know a lot of fans probably don't get to see this, but when you watch the Chiefs practice, there's one player that I've ever seen almost run with Tyreek Hill vertically down the field, and it's L'Jarius Sneed. Almost. He still gets outrun, but he almost can keep up with them. And then you watch him play in these preseason games and how physically he is versus the run. Watching him handle two-way goes out of the slot, seeing what he did as a rookie playing outside cornerback last year, just filling in for Bashaud Breeland. L'Jarius Sneed's different. I mean, it's a cliche at this point in time, but he's just built different than a lot of other cornerbacks that have come through the Kansas City Chiefs organization over the past few years. He's going to be so much fun to watch.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot more to add other than the fact that, we're on this network now and, BJ does it all the time. So here we go. L'Jarius Sneed is breaking the fucking sophomore ceiling on this thing. It's happening. Like he's playing so insanely well right now. It's insane. So I can't wait to see him get to the regular season. We're going to get 4 weeks into this thing, and you're going to see national media turning around and going, "Oh, wow, we were really sleeping on that guy. Where the hell did he come from?" He's coming. He's coming. It's happening this year, and it's going to happen quick too. He just looks amazing.
He really does. And there's so much, there's just so many little things. Like even just there takes some football character to be a defensive back and be willing to play the run and to play gap sound and play assignment sound. And he does all that. And so that's all encouraging. And then there's the physical ability. I mean, his physical profile it's really strong. Craig, what kind of CBAT was he again? Was he a tier 1 or a tier 2?
Oh, he was a tier 1. He was a strong tier 1.
Hey, don't get the big institution started on the CBATs.
I got CBAT takes. He was a strong tier 1. That's why you invest in tier 1 CVs right there.
If you're new to what CBAT is, Craig created an athletic metric that kind of measures cornerback athleticism and how it relates to success. And he's called
CBAT because he accidentally didn't capitalize the C but did the BAT. So instead of being CBAT and us having to figure out how else to say it, we just get it rolled off the tongue as CBAT.
Yes, BAT is all capitalized, so it's CBAT. But
that's how L'Jarius Sneed hits runners when they're carrying the football.
Man, like a baseball bat. Yeah,
he's carrying the wood.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch this defensive line that didn't have a couple key pieces still play well. I mean, it wasn't maybe the best that we've seen early on. There was some there was some run fits that may not have looked the best, but largely, I think that the players that were in there, the guys that you got to see a lot of, I think they still played pretty well, Maddie.
I think the entire defense played well. I can't really poke holes in much of anything that happened. I mean, I think there was the traditional struggles that we've seen out of Dan Sorensen, Ben Niemann maybe not being the most athletic guys when challenged in space, but they're doing what they need to do the vast majority of the time. This defense throughout the entire preseason looked really good. I think we could spend a lot of time talking about various guys that were impressive, that weren't impressive. But I'm going to take this time. I don't think he makes this roster. I hope he gets in the practice squad. But we got to start talking about Tyler Clark, defensive tackle, newcomer to Kansas City. He's been really good in this preseason. Like once the starters shuffle out, once you get into the guys that clearly backups are playing, Tyler Clark looks different than a lot of the other guys out there. Like he just looks like a guy that plays better than him. And Tim Ward keep getting out there with the second and third string defensive line rotation. And both of them just kind of have their way with opposing offensive linemen that are playing at that level. Both of those guys, I do think, deserve to be on a 53-man roster. Tyler Clark's just unfortunately on a roster that has defensive tackles. I mean, just coming out of the woodwork. There's just nowhere to stash another defensive tackle because Tershawn Wharton's look so good. Chris Jones will play inside. Jaron Reed, Derek Nottie, Colin Saunders, who a lot of people, including us, talked about as a potential cut candidate coming up into this year because he got outplayed by an undrafted free agent. Hadn't flashed a ton as a rookie. He's all of a sudden come back, developed like, young draft picks do. And all of a sudden, he looks like a guy that almost deserves starter reps. So just Tyler Clark's been really, really good. I'm excited for him. I hope if he does get signed to a team, I hope he gets a chance. But if not, I hope he's on the Chiefs practice squad because they could use him next year when they can't bring back all of these other defensive tackles.
I do think it is worth noting. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Colin Saunders, but one of the things that we kept harping on last year was Colin Saunders got beat out by a UDFA, like before the season even started. Like he was beat out by a UDFA. That UDFA looks really damn good right now. Like I mean, I think
Sure
I think it's just fairly safe to say that everybody whiffed on Turk Wharton. And good on the Chiefs. Good on whichever area scout was around to pick up on Turk Wharton there. But no, it's good to see Colin Saunders making an impact. Saw him split a couple doubles today. That was good. That was something last week he didn't do particularly well. Did it pretty well this week. But yeah, Tyler Clark. There would be other years that we would really be banging the drum for Tyler Clark to make this 53, and it's just. The numbers game is not in his favor in that. So yeah, I'm with Maddie. I hope he makes the practice squad.
I mean, guys like Tyler Clark speak to how boring this offseason has been too, though, in a lot of ways, because this team is so well established. It's so deep. And, I mean, the practice squad looks like it could be stacked if some of these guys don't make it through, waivers and all that, because there's a lot of talent on this football team. There's a lot of guys that deserve opportunities, like Darius Fountain. Darius Fountain deserves an opportunity somewhere. He needs to go be a Jet and get, 25 targets this year, 30 targets this year. There's some guys I think that are going to go out and get some opportunities elsewhere on this team. And it just speaks to the depth and the quality of roster that we've seen here in Kansas City this year. Because like Tyler Clark probably makes this football team, in other years, because the talent level has not been remotely close to the same that it's been, that it is right now. And I do think, thinking about these last couple drafts and some of the guys that are really intriguing us and some of the guys that are coming on in their second years and, the talent level, even talk about some of the undrafted free agents. I mean, the early draft receipts for Brett Veach are not particularly strong. I mean, Breland Speaks was his first pick, but I think he's starting to figure some things out. I think he's starting to kind of understand some things here a little bit better in his roster construction, the quality that he's putting together. I think the evaluation process and the selections and the undrafted free agent investments definitely on an upswing. And that's something that I'm really excited about. I'm really looking forward to seeing how some of these young guys play in year two, how some of these rookies kind of shake out. All right, guys, let's get some final thoughts here. Maddie, give me a final thought. Unless you have more. You look very disappointed that I'm even trying to wrap this up. What do you got?
No. I'm trying to think of what my final thoughts were, because I kind of thought Tyler Clark was my going out point. That was my high note. I was coming I needed the George Costanza at that point in time. I actually needed to get up and go, because I think it's only downhill from now for me for final things. I think that this Chiefs team, from what we've seen in the preseason, the defense is going to be better than it was last year. It's just simply going to be. And last year's defense wasn't that bad. I just think this defense is going to be better. This offensive line is going to be better than it was last year. Yeah, there's going to be ups and downs, but it's clearly going to be better. If all else can even just hold serve, if everything else can just maintain how good it was last year, this is a better football team. Add on Patrick Mahomes potentially playing better because he feels more protected. Add on some of the guys on defense just developing and showcasing more. And the sky's the limit for this team. I think you have to be real happy as a Chiefs fan, not only for the moves they've made and guys they've brought in, but the amount of development that's happening with some of these younger players. You have to feel really good about this coaching staff and just the outlook of this team going forward. This is going to be a really fun season, barring any injuries. So knock on wood for that. But I think this is still just the beginning of where this Chiefs team is going if they can keep the majority of this coaching staff around.
I said it earlier this offseason, but it bears repeating. This is the most comfortable that I have felt with the Chiefs' depth potentially ever. Like the cuts that are going to happen to this team, we're going to look at, we're going to understand. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we're going to look at him and be like, no, they shouldn't have cut that guy. No, we're going to understand it, but they're cutting some very good players on this roster because they are stacked in their depth. There are obvious questions at wide receiver. There are questions that maybe a little bit with the safety rotation if Juan Thornhill is not feeling up to it. Questions at cornerback if one of those guys isn't playing to the level that they played to so far in this preseason. But as it stands right now, the top to bottom depth of this team is just really good. And that's a testament to Andy, as a testament to this coaching staff, and a testament to Veach and the scouts that they were able to put together this exact roster. I know Matty talked about injuries. I'm less worried about injuries than I was in years past. I really am. Obvious ones, but that we don't want to happen. But like, if a guy goes down, I'm not as worried in, the linebacker position or the defensive line, defensive end particularly. I'm not as worried. So that's my major takeaway. They got out of the preseason healthy, and they got a bunch of guys that are really going to be able to play and be good rotational people. There are going to be guys that are inactive on game day that would be contributors on other teams. So I think that is just a testament to the roster.
My final thought is actually kind of a combination of both of yours, and it's reiterating some things and maybe saying a few things a little bit differently. So, they're on the outside looking in, they went paper thin on some positions like cornerback. And we had a bunch of questions about established veterans. We had a bunch of questions about, why aren't they bringing back Bashad Breeland? All they have is DeAndre Baker coming off a broken leg. All they have is Mike Hughes they acquired for pennies from the Minnesota Vikings. That not only does this team seem more established at those positions, by the way, the Chiefs had the best number 21 on the field tonight. Beyond just that, the strengths became strengths. And you kind of speak into Matty when he's talking about player development. A lot of the defensive line looks deep. It looks to have a bunch of very defined roles and good players in those roles. That's going to really make this an outstanding group, probably one of the best in the National Football League when it's all said and done. So credit to the development of this roster. But also, we're sitting here talking about all this, Matty. You're sitting here talking about this team. They're better. They're better up front. They're better along the offensive line. If everything else holds serve, this team went 14-1
exactly
last year. The ceiling is not particularly like there's not many other places to go.
Good thing they gave us an extra game.
The one place they can go, and it's still in effect, is 23-0. And honestly, looking at the depth of this team, the backups might be able to win in week 18 anyway. I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun this season. We cannot wait to be talking Chiefs all year with you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
This is perfect to get out of here on this note then. When the Chiefs play the Cleveland Browns, what is the final score if Chad Henne was the starting quarterback in week 1?
Well, I mean, it's closer than it would have been, so I'm going to say 35-12.
Boy, how's Baker scoring 12 on this defense?
I'm going 22-17, which was the score of the playoff game.
I love it. This is what we needed. This is what we needed. You can't beat Henne.
Nope. Any time, any place, we don't care. We're ready to go. That is going to do it for the KC Laboratory post-game show. All juice forever. What a great way to close out a day honoring our dear pal Terez Paylor. We miss you, man. You meant a lot to me personally, and I know you meant a lot to us and a lot of people in Kansas City and a lot of people around the world. So we love you, man. We miss you. And it's really cool to honor you today. That is going to do it for us. We'll catch you later.